In a letter out this morning, Senator Elizabeth Warren is questioning the Fed about closed-door conversations with JPMorgan CEO Jamie Dimon, advocating for slashing bank capital requirements in half. In the letter, Senator Warren writes, "It now appears that you are directly doing the bank industry's bidding, rewarding them for their extensive personal lobbying of you." Senator Elizabeth Warren joins us this morning, and she has more on her stance on this. Senator, welcome. What do you think the problem is here?
Look, the problem is that just last year, we saw the second, third, and fourth largest bank failures in the history of the United States. There is an effort underway that has been underway for years now to increase the capital standards, not across the board for all the banks, but for that tiny sliver at the top, probably somewhere in the range of 5 or 6 banks. Now, those banks don't want to have to increase their capital standards because it means they have to hold a little money back so that they're a little safer, a little more secure, and so that American taxpayers won't be called on to bail them out again. Back when the Fed Chair, Jerome Powell, was talking to us last year about the bank failures, he admitted that we needed stronger capital reserve requirements. And he has made the point repeatedly when he's come in front of Congress, when I've questioned him, that we have a vice chair for supervision, that's Michael Barr, and that Jerome Powell, as chair, would support the vice chair as the vice chair developed rules for stronger capital standards. The vice chair is doing that, and it appears that the chair, Jerome Powell, is trying to undercut him. In other words, doing the bidding of that handful of giant banks who would like to be able to gamble all of their money, and if things go wrong, have the taxpayers pick up the slack.
All right, Senator Warren, let's run through a few of those points. That's a lot of stuff to dig through. First of all, you mentioned the big bank failures that we've had recently. That is true. We have had the biggest bank failures, but it has not been the taxpayers that have bailed them out. It has all been borne by the FDIC. It raised special assessments on all those biggest banks that you talked about. So they were the ones who have been doing the bailing out when it comes to this. Second of all, these big banks have pushed back, and their side of things has been that if we are not allowed to use that capital, it is capital that will not be going out to do things like make loans for houses, make loans for small businesses, make sure that the American public has access to that money, and that we will become less competitive relative to other big countries.
So, let me unpack what you've just said. The idea that we say it's fine for the FDIC to have to pick up, I don't know, $12, $15 billion in losses because of those bank failures, we shouldn't worry about it. And notice, by the way, that JPMorgan Chase, that bought one of those big banks, managed to book a more than $2 billion gain from doing its own government-supported rescue of one of those failing banks. Look, the whole idea is to make the banking system more stable. And I don't know about you, but I still remember in 2008 when the American taxpayer had to sign up to be on the line for $700 billion in bailout money for those giant financial institutions.
But it wasn't the giant financial institutions that have gone bankrupt. You're right.
And that the Fed opened its window and let money go out over
but I don't think
and
we should
over
I don't think
over.
we should compare to what's happening right now to what happened during the Great Recession, during the Great.
That's what everybody says. Let's not worry about the bad times during the good times. The banks are highly profitable right now. They have booked enormous profits. And if they had to put aside just a little bit, then they would be safer. That's the idea behind it. And do keep in mind that these giant banks are no longer the banks that are doing lots of home mortgage lending. That's done by our community banks. It's done by our regional banks. It's done outside the banking system now.
The community banks and regional banks are the ones that got in trouble. That's where the big collapses came from.
Take a look at who it is that's doing the home mortgage lending.
Let's take a look at who was doing the financial collapses, though, too.
The banks are making the argument that somehow they won't be able to do a kind of lending that they're only doing a tiny portion of right now. The way I see this is we have a vice chair for supervision. Jerome Powell has testified to this multiple times. He is the expert on bank capital requirements. He is trying to devise those capital requirements. He is getting hit by lobbying by a handful of giant banks. And now it appears, and I've written a letter to ask about this, that Jerome Powell is also joining the lobbying. Jerome Powell said in open testimony in front of the United States Senate Banking Committee that he would support the vice chair for supervision. He did that back when the vice chair was Randy Quarles and very much in the corner of the big banks. Now that it's someone who's taking a little tougher look at those banks, suddenly it appears that the chair of the Federal Reserve is changing his tune. Look, either he really believes in supporting the vice chair or he doesn't. But it is not the job of Chairman Powell to get out and lobby on behalf of a handful of banks so that they can be even more profitable by pushing more risk into the rest of the system.
Senator, my biggest problem, I think, with what you're saying is questioning Jay Powell's credibility or his commitment on what he's doing with these things to suggest that he's been bought and paid for by the banks.
All I can do is compare what he said in testimony in front of the committee I'm on in answers to questions to me in public, and how he has now turned around and appears to be changing
with a
his
different.
tune. I have written a letter that says I want to clarify what his position is, and I would like for him to clarify his position on this.
But
he's not there to lobby on behalf of a handful of giant banks.
But are you suggesting that his opinion has been drawn up because of these banks?
And the security
I'll let you talk first, and then you can listen to me. I'll let you talk first, and then you can listen to me. We shouldn't talk over each other. Go ahead.
We shouldn't. Go ahead. You're the one who interrupted.
Okay. Senator, let me just ask, are you suggesting that Jay Powell is a person who has been totally swayed by the banks on this? Or what? I mean, it sounds like you are. Am I wrong to make that assumption?
I'm suggesting that Jay Powell testified in front of the Banking Committee multiple times that he would be guided by the vice chair of supervision on decisions around capital requirements. He did that for years when Randy Quarles was the vice chair for supervision. I didn't like the direction Randy Quarles went because I thought he was too much in the pocket of the banks. But so be it. That's what Jay Powell said was his approach. He thought it was the right thing to do. Plus, he said that's the structure of the Fed. We have exactly one place in the Fed where there's one person who is specifically charged by statute with developing the expertise and developing the rules on things like capital standards, and that's the vice chair for supervision. And then Jay Powell turns around and seems to be undercutting exactly what the vice chair for supervision is doing. And I want to understand why. And I want to understand if it is related to the fact that Jay Powell has had multiple meetings with Jamie Dimon and with other big bankers. It's not the job of Jay Powell to carry water for the biggest banks in this country. It is the job of the chairman of the Fed to watch out for the security and safety of the whole system. And that is specifically on the question of capital reserve requirements, the job of the vice chair. So I have written a letter to Jay Powell asking him, would he please clarify what on earth he's doing here?